A first trade network was built 3,000 years ago by a civilization with no empire, no armies, and no territorial ambition. The Phoenicians operated from scattered coastal cities, yet they shaped the economic behavior of every power that touched the Mediterranean. What they engineered was not commerce, it was architecture, a system of routes, standards, and dependencies that allowed them to dictate the flow of essential resources long before any state understood what was happening. And this is the part modern economics glosses over. The first supply chain was not an accident of geography. It was a deliberate design built to make larger powers rely on smaller ones that controlled the corridors of movement. You feel the echo of that design every time a shipping delay raises a price, every time a shortage spreads faster than explanations, every time your cost of living shifts because a network you never see has changed direction. You work more than you did 5 years ago. You earn more. Yet the distance between stability and uncertainty has not narrowed. That is not randomness. It is the consequence of living inside a system shaped by the same incentives that governed ancient roots. What you are about to see is not a story about merchants. It is the blueprint of every modern supply chain, from oil to semiconductors to the groceries in your kitchen. The pattern is documented, the mechanics are visible, and the logic is older than any modern institution. Understanding this architecture does not give you a market prediction. It gives you something more dangerous. It gives you a lens. The people who built the first trade network counted on others never recognizing the structure beneath it. Every minute you spend not seeing that structure is a minute the system spends shaping you. The first network built without an empire. The Phoenicians built a trade network that functioned with the precision of an imperial system, but without the political architecture of an empire. Their cities were scattered islands of autonomy along the coast, each one small enough to be dismissed by the great powers of their age. Yet they connected these ports through routes so consistent, so predictable, and so vital that larger civilizations became dependent on them for timber, metals, dyes, and the movement of goods they could not produce or transport alone. This is the detail historians acknowledge but rarely emphasize. Influence did not come from armies or territory. It came from reliability. A city that controls the corridor controls the outcome, even if it controls nothing else. You feel the logic of that design every time your daily life depends on systems run by companies you never voted for and countries you will never visit. Your phone, your car, your medicine, the groceries you buy each week. None of them reach you without a web of private hands moving quietly across oceans. The Phoenicians understood that power comes not from ruling people, but from becoming the indispensable link between them. The mechanism beneath this is simple. Interconnection creates dependency. Dependency creates leverage. Leverage shapes behavior long before anyone notices it is happening. And once a network reaches this level of influence, the size of the actors inside it becomes irrelevant. What matters is who controls the flow, not who holds the throne. This is the pattern the next topic exposes. The ancient network was not simply efficient. It was engineered to make others rely on it. Interdependence as a form of control. Ancient kingdoms believed they were trading with the Phoenicians on equal terms, but the balance was already tilted. The cedar forests of Lebanon, the glass workshops of Sidon, the purple dye of Tyre, and the metal routes stretching toward Iberia were not just products. They were leverage points. When a civilization depends on another for the resources that sustain its economy, the negotiation is over before it begins. The Phoenicians did not need to dominate anyone militarily. They simply ensured that the most essential materials traveled through their hands. Control the arteries, and the body follows. You recognize this dynamic every time a disruption thousands of kilometers away raises the price of something you need. A shortage of chips shifts the cost of cars. A delay in shipping containers alters the price of food. A bottleneck in energy routes reshapes entire industries. You feel the tension personally, even though the mechanism remains invisible. Your financial life is already tied to systems you do not influence. What makes interdependence powerful is that it disguises authority. The Phoenicians appeared to be service providers. In reality, they were the gatekeepers of economic survival for larger states that could not admit their reliance. That same dynamic governs modern supply chains. The visible power sits in capitals. The real power sits in corridors, ports, and choke points where decisions are made by entities without flags. This brings us to the deeper layer. If interdependence creates leverage, then efficiency becomes the tool that locks it in place. And the next topic exposes exactly how that mechanism formed. The hidden cost of efficiency target. The Phoenicians perfected a system that looked efficient on the surface, but carried a structural cost no one recognized until it was too late. Their routes were optimized for speed, predictability, and minimal redundancy. A ship leaving Tyre knew exactly where it would resupply, where it would trade, and when it could safely cross each corridor. This created a network that delivered goods with a consistency unmatched in the ancient world. But it also did something more dangerous. It created single points of failure. When storms, piracy, or political tension disrupted even one link, the shock radiated across every port that relied on that flow. You experience this same pattern every time a local disruption becomes a global crisis. A single factory shutdown ripples through an entire industry. A backlog at one port raises prices on the other side of the world. An unexpected delay in a supply route becomes a financial pressure on your daily life. What you call inflation, scarcity, or volatility is often just the modern version of an ancient structural flaw. The pursuit of efficiency erased resilience. The Phoenicians understood that this vulnerability strengthened their leverage. If others could not replicate the network, they had no alternative when disruptions occurred. The system trapped its participants in a cycle of dependence, where the very efficiency they relied on made them unable to exit. Today's just-in-time logistics replicate this dynamic with mathematical precision, and the pattern raises a deeper question. If efficiency hides fragility, who benefits from keeping the system fragile? The birth of standardization target. As Phoenician ships moved between distant ports, they carried more than goods. They carried rules. Standard weights, consistent measures, shared cargo protocols, and recognizable markings became the invisible infrastructure that allowed goods to move without renegotiating terms at every stop. This standardization looked like progress. In reality, it was control. When every port adjusts its scales, prices, and expectations to match one network's practices, the network becomes the arbiter of economic truth. Anyone who does not conform is excluded from the flow, and exclusion is ruin. You live inside that logic today. Every time a product fits only one charger, every time a company dictates the format others must follow, every time global trade depends on standards set by industries you never see and institutions you never voted for. These standards create convenience for you. They create compliance for everyone else. And once you accept the standard, you accept the authority behind it. For the Phoenicians, this authority was not enforced by decree. It emerged through necessity. A merchant who refused to use their measures would simply lose access to the most profitable routes. A port that rejected their protocols would see ships divert elsewhere. The market did the enforcement, and the network reaped the benefit. Modern supply chains mirror this perfectly. Whether through technical standards, shipping practices, or digital protocols, the entities that define the rules define the limits of participation. And the moment a standard becomes universal, it becomes impossible to challenge without destabilizing everything built upon it. This leads directly to the next mechanism. If standardization creates order, information creates dominance. The next topic reveals how knowledge itself became the real currency of the network. The Phoenician network was not a primitive precursor to modern trade. It was the blueprint. The logic they created still governs the systems that shape your financial life today. Control the route and you control access. Control the standard and you control participation. Control the information and you control the future. Every modern supply chain, from energy corridors to semiconductor fabrication to the movement of basic food, is built on these foundations. The scale has changed. The architecture has not. And the consequences fall on you long before they reach the institutions that designed the system. You feel this every time a shortage appears without warning. Every time a price rises faster than your salary. Every time efficiency promises stability but delivers fragility. You are experiencing a structure perfected long before nations understood what networks could do. The pattern is not accidental, it is self-reinforcing. Those who control the flow shape the world. Those who depend on the flow adapt to it. Seeing this architecture does not give you certainty, it gives you clarity. And clarity is the one thing the system is never designed to offer. Because once you understand how the network operates, you stop interpreting economic events as isolated shocks. You start recognizing them as expressions of a model crafted centuries ago. And once you see the model, you cannot return to the illusion of neutrality. The system was built with intention. The question now is whether you choose to see it.